Hi, I'm Sunny. I work in the music industry and enjoy writing about music, culture, identity, and community in my spare time. I put the following essay up on my Substack and was pleased with the interest it had and the response it got. I figured it would be useful to read you the essay for those of you who enjoy watching or listening to content rather than reading. Please subscribe if you enjoy content like this, and please leave a comment below if you have any feedback or if there are any other themes or topics you would like to see discussed. Let's get right into it. The male loneliness epidemic, masculinity, and the manosphere. The role of men in society has changed. It's okay to feel unmoored. The social construct of masculinity is in turbulence. Men are struggling to find their place in an ever-changing world that strives for race and gender equity to rightly correct historical imbalances. As the concept of masculinity fractures into splinter groups in response, I explore how we got here, the fundamental problems affecting men, how the manosphere fills a void while encouraging division, and how we might give men the support they need. The mask of masculinity. I have always been fascinated by the concept of masculinity because, quite frankly, it is a suit that has never fully fitted my frame. I am a sensitive, emotional, open book of a man. In adult life, I have found peace in this, with a deep knowing that it is a real gift, despite these characteristics not always aligning with what is traditionally expected of a man. I know I am not alone in this, and that is why writing on this subject is so important. As we continue to see examples of men exploiting their positions of power and influence, elsewhere we see a softening of what it means to be a man, to be in touch with one's emotions, to communicate effectively, and to be an ally for positive change. But that wasn't always the case. Historically, advertising imagery of men promoted one fixed form of masculinity. Men were breadwinners. They supported their family, they socialized at the pub, or played sports. Nowadays, it proves harder to define, with, quote, just 1 in 4 men, 26%, saying they regularly see advertising that reflects the man they want to become, end quote. Perhaps, as Marion Wright Edelman said, quote, you can't be what you can't see, end quote. Through each wave of feminism, we're now in the 4th wave, we have seen improved rights for gender minorities, but for some men, they see the relinquishment of their absolute power toward a more just and inclusive society as a personal attack. They may have a scarcity mindset that to improve the rights and lives of gender minorities is to take away from their own. However, it would be healthier to accept an abundant mindset that providing equity across society for all genders does not take away from the lives of men. Though men, too, have valid cause for concern over their place in society, their own rights and opportunities. An unprecedented mental health crisis. We live in a patriarchal society that inherently benefits men, but that does not mean men sail through life without care or concern. Suicide is still the biggest killer of men under the age of 50. There are real problems facing men that are often overlooked or unaddressed. The glamorization of hustle culture has led to toxic productivity. The concept that your sense of worth is measured by how much work you get done, how much you achieve, how much you earn, all of which leads to increased anxiety, a higher risk of illness, and more. The rise in gym culture, bodybuilding, and the supplements industry has fueled an increase in body dysmorphia. Quote, more men and young boys are developing a compulsive relationship to exercise, dieting, and in some cases, steroid use, end quote. Emotional inexpressiveness, the boys don't cry fallacy. The damage is often done in early years where emotions of sadness, fear, worry, and sentimentality are deemed feminine and should be discouraged in boys and men. Quote, research shows that by age 5, boys already exhibit more emotional suppression than girls due to external cues from parents, peers, and media. End quote. This can often lead to men not being able to label their emotions or know what to do with them. If I'm honest, I still don't really know how to deal with uncomfortable feelings of anger. That's something that I'm working through. Quote, about 77% of men have dealt with common mental health issues such as anxiety, stress, or depression, yet 40% have never spoken to anyone about their mental health struggles. End quote. This is heartbreaking, especially when men make up roughly 75% of all suicides in the UK. Perhaps one of the biggest problems men face is the loneliness epidemic. According to counsellor and psychotherapist Adrian Wilson-Smith, research unambiguously shows that women, quote, are more inclined to have best friends and men are more likely to socialise in groups. And yet, most heterosexual men look to their partners to do their social organising for them. End quote. This is not sustainable for their romantic relationships, and it begs the question, what are men missing out on by not having the quality and depth that is characteristic of one-on-one friendships? Quotes. Research conducted in 2021 found that 15% of men claim to have no close friends at all since, quote, loneliness is as bad for you as smoking a dozen cigarettes a day, end quote. So I was curious as to how most men actually make new male friends. When I looked online and asked around for suggestions, I was inundated with the same two answers: sports or work. Men who had kids also made friends with other parents, but for child-free men, the common options seemed very limited and have barely progressed in decades. And what were your options if you didn't like or couldn't participate in sports? Or if you worked from home, weren't surrounded by a team of colleagues, or were unemployed? When I searched the internet for an equivalent answer for women, it returned with a range of suggestions, as if women had interrogated this question themselves for years. For women, their answers included book clubs, networking apps like Bumble or Meetup, volunteering, arts and pottery clubs, classes, sports, and more. According to the American Psychological Association, quote, adult friendships, especially high-quality ones that provide social support and companionship, significantly predict well-being and can protect against mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, and those benefits persist across the lifespan, end quote. If men don't have close relationships or confide with friends or peers, how are they to share their concerns, their frustrations, or their sadness? How do they release their pressure valve? Pair this with emotional inexpressiveness, and it is no surprise that far too many men feel lonely and damage themselves by seeking refuge in extreme pockets online or by taking their own life. As former England manager Gareth Southgate discussed for the Richard Dimbleby lecture, quote, young men are suffering, they're feeling isolated, they're grappling with their masculinity and with their broader place in society, end quote. I really encourage you to watch the address in full as Southgate speaks so passionately on the state of masculinity today and how it is compounded by the toxicity of social media. Where there are vulnerable people, someone looking for a valid explanation to the ills that have befallen them, there is always a con man closely following behind to take knowing advantage of them for personal gain, buying the snake oil. I am both sympathetic and fearful for young men. In the last decade, we've seen an ever-growing coterie of domineering figures try to seize control of what a man should be, wanting to see a return to the one-dimensional traditional masculinity of old. Trump, is the epitome of that. Many men rightfully feel lost. As we plunge on in this age of extreme wealth inequality, political instability, and impending, irrevocable societal, environmental, and technological change. Sadly, there are bad faith actors exploiting men's vulnerability, amplifying harmful ideologies, including misogyny. Many men have felt the reassuring arm around their shoulder from online commentators, like those who feed the Manosphere, luring men into a bait and switch. Listen to me, follow me, and you'll be all-knowing, all-desired, and all-powerful. We'll return things to how they used to be. All I ask for is your attention, your money, your support, your vote. And this ruse seems to be working. Not only are they dangerous by knowingly simplifying complex social, economic issues, including dog whistle sound bites, but they're encouraging hate and division for political gain. According to Alexandra Clocker, quote, "The proliferation of Manosphere dogma has led to the rise of gender hegemony, violence against women, radicalized alt-right ideology, and violent extremism." End quote. This was discussed in the excellent article Hypermasculinity is Driving US Foreign Policy, where Alice Lassman wrote, quote, "Misogynistic content is reaching boys at an unprecedented pace after less than 9 minutes of scrolling on TikTok. Society's failure to offer guidance on men's role in society has left young males vulnerable to voices that shift the blame to women, with 60% of Gen Z men across 31 countries now believing gender equality has gone too far. It's hard to identify the demographics of the Manosphere or incel culture due to the anonymity of posters, but research by Valerga and Zabrigan estimates they are predominantly straight men under 25 years old. And due to the nature of racist content and tendencies towards white supremacy, it is assumed they are predominantly white. It's a devastating cycle for many. Men have valid reasons to feel lonely, insecure, and uncertain, but receive little to no support. They consume content that simplifies complex issues, passing the blame of their very real concerns onto race or gender minorities. This shapes their understanding, their language, their humor, their beliefs. Social rejection or distancing due to their support in extreme dogma compounds their isolation and pushes them further into extreme views, forums, and hateful content that encourages, quote, coercion, control, and violence towards one half of the population, end quote. As explained by Jonathan Griffin for the BBC, there seems to be an overlap between the hyper-nationalist, anti-feminist movement of the alt-right and incel culture. Quote, "Both movements view the world through the lens of group genetics, with racial stereotypes, and think of themselves as unfairly maligned minority groups under attack by political correctness. And they share the same sense of humour, which has practically no filter." End quote. This problem won't go away on its own, and it needs immediate yet delicate social and political intervention during a time of crisis in global leadership, especially as research shows that when young men feel a sense of belonging or acceptance in groups, quote, typically in online communities tied to men's rights activism, it becomes more difficult for them to return to a less extreme ideological stance or maintain a sense of self, end quote, that is distinct from it. Snake oil is a viscous substance, hard to remove. So how do we fix it? How do we help men to open up, to find new connections, to feel a part of society and accept their new position within it? How do we break their trance from such a hateful hypnosis to see the destructive path they're going down in support of men? When I was young, I constantly felt at odds with who I was and how others, men in particular, perceived me. Routinely, others assumed I was gay because my emotionality didn't fit the normative expression of masculinity. So, like many young men, I felt ashamed when I cried. Uncomfortable emotions that I couldn't communicate or feeling misunderstood often led to frustration, then anger, then a silent shame. It took decades to unpick unhealthy patterns of behavior and thought, to accept myself for who I am, and to recognize reliable role models whose expression of masculinity near matched my own. It wasn't until I met my close friends, similar in their emotionality, where we grew closer, learning to cultivate one-on-one time to talk openly about what was concerning us, without always tying it to an activity. We have a group chat and check in daily, whether we have anxieties or not, and I'm so thankful for that and for them. In the social media era, we are more connected than ever, and yet we regularly feel more isolated. In the decades that have passed since my youth, it seems to have gotten harder for young men to make quality friendships as we live more of our lives online. My friends and I would meet at community centres, music venues, clubs, pubs and parks, adding online gaming when the technology allowed it. While Gen Z are staying at home more, have drastically fewer youth centres to socialise in and opportunities to meet in real life. Not to mention living through the pandemic during their most formative years. I want to see community and political leaders with a vision, a wealth tax to finally fully fund public services, including mental health support, and the return of youth centres up and down the country as safe spaces for young people to socialise and grow. We also need to talk directly to our young men about the content they're consuming, how they are feeling, how they can express emotions in a healthy way, and perhaps take more radical action on social media usage. Jack Thorne, writer of Adolescence, recommends smartphone bans in school and a digital age of consent. From the popularity of that show and the dialogue that followed, it seems both parents and young people alike recognize the crossroads that we're at. Quote, "There really is no such thing as a man's role anymore, either at work or at home," end quote. And though that may be disorientating when masculinity has been fixed for so long, it allows us the opportunity to seek out new role models and definitions of masculinity. I long for the day when the majority of men see this as liberation, that we don't need to fit within outdated parameters of what it is to be a man within society. We don't need to be breadwinners. That roles within society need not be gendered or fixed. That feelings of loneliness are extremely common and justified, but support is closer than you think. That equity for race and gender minorities does not take away from your power or your potential. There is a place for us all in this ever-changing world. Stillness follows turbulence. Thank you for watching. The full list of references are available on my Substack. If you want to delve into additional reading, please leave your thoughts and comments below. And if you want to see any other subjects discussed, write them down and I will research them. I will write an essay. Let's encourage community. Let's get a conversation going. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.